In the summer of 1462, an Ottoman army 80,000 strong marched into a small country to erase one man. It was led by Mehmed II, the sultan who had shattered the 1,000-year walls of Constantinople and ended the Roman Empire. 80,000 men, maybe more. And after weeks of campaigning, that army turned around. It went home, not beaten in open battle, broken by something worse, by dread, by one man who had decided that if he could not win with numbers, he would win by becoming the most frightening human being alive. His name was Vlad III. History would call him Vlad the Impaler. The world would remember a borrowed version of his other name, Dracula. But strip away the castles and the fangs and the candle-lit legend, and what's left is colder and more real. A ruler who turned terror into a weapon and aimed it at an empire. It begins fittingly with the name. His father was a warrior prince inducted into a Christian order called the Order of the Dragon, sworn to fight the advancing Ottomans. In the old language, dragon was Dracul, so his father became Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Dragon, and his son became Dracula, son of the dragon. It was a title of honor before it was ever a title of horror. Vlad was born into one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in history. His homeland, Wallachia, was a thin strip of land caught between two giants, the Kingdom of Hungary to the north and the Ottoman Empire to the south, each one expecting loyalty, each one ready to punish betrayal. A prince of Wallachia did not die of old age. He died by the knife, usually held by his own nobleman. When Vlad was still a boy, his father made a desperate bargain to keep his throne. He handed 2 of his sons to the Ottomans as hostages. Vlad and his younger brother Radu were taken deep into enemy territory, living guarantees of their father's obedience. If Vlad Dracul stepped out of line, his children would pay. For years, Vlad lived as a prisoner in a gilded cage, and there, as a captive, he received an education that would shape everything. He learned the Ottoman language, their tactics, their court, the cold machinery of their power. He also learned what fear could do. He watched men kept obedient by the certainty of punishment. His brother Radu adapted, even embraced their captors. Vlad seems to have hardened into something else, watchful, patient, and utterly without illusions about how the world worked. Then came the news that would forge him. Back home, his father was overthrown and killed. His older brother was blinded with hot iron and buried alive by the very noblemen they were supposed to rule. Vlad was now a young man with a claim to a stolen throne, a head full of his enemies' secrets, and a debt of blood. He took the throne of Wallachia in 1456, and he took it the way it had been taken from his family, by force. The country he inherited was a wreck. The noble class, the boyars, had grown used to murdering princes and dividing the spoils. Crime was everywhere. Authority meant nothing, so Vlad set out to fix it the only way he believed would last. He made disobedience unthinkable. This is the part of the story that earned his name. Vlad's chosen punishment was impalement, a slow, public, deliberately horrifying death. He used it on criminals, on traitors, on enemies, on anyone who threatened the fragile order he was building. There is a famous story, likely exaggerated but telling, that he left a golden cup beside a public fountain, and no one ever dared steal it because everyone understood what would happen if they did. Whether or not it's literally true, that was the point. Vlad wanted his land to run on a single emotion: fear. And for a brutal few years, in a brutal age, it worked. We should be honest about what he was. By any measure, ancient or modern, Vlad was a tyrant who killed on a staggering scale. But he was also something his neighbors recognized and even respected: a wall. A prince willing to do anything to keep a hungry empire from swallowing his homeland. To his enemies, a monster. To his people, for a time, the only thing standing between them and the storm. And the storm was coming. For decades, Wallachia had bought peace by paying the Ottomans an annual tribute, money, and a quota of young boys taken for the Sultan's armies. Vlad stopped paying. When Ottoman envoys arrived at his court and refused to remove their turbans in his presence, claiming it was their custom, Vlad agreed that they should honor their custom. And then, the chronicles say, he had the turbans nailed to their heads so they could never take them off again. It was a declaration of war with no takebacks. Vlad crossed the frozen Danube into Ottoman territory and tore through it, village after village, fortress after fortress, sending the Sultan a written tally of the dead like an invoice. He was a minor prince spitting in the face of a superpower. And the superpower answered. In the spring of 1462, Mehmed II came for him in person, with an army several times the size of anything Vlad could field. On paper, it was already over. Vlad had perhaps 20 to 30,000 men against a force that had toppled the greatest city in the world. He could not meet them in a straight fight and survive. So he didn't. Instead, Vlad did something that looks shockingly modern. He burned his own country. As the Ottoman army advanced, they found nothing. Fields torched, villages emptied, wells poisoned, livestock driven off. The summer heat became a weapon. Disease crept through the ranks. Vlad's riders harried the edges of the column, struck and vanished. He was trading his own land for time, bleeding the giant a little at a time, and waiting for one chance to do something decisive. That chance came on the night of June 17th. Vlad knew the Ottoman camp from the inside. He had grown up among these people, spoke their language without an accent. Under cover of darkness, he led a strike force straight into the heart of the enemy host with a single audacious goal: find the Sultan's tent and kill Mehmed himself. Decapitate the empire in one stroke. What followed was chaos in the dark, torches, screams, tents collapsing, soldiers cutting down soldiers in the confusion. Vlad's men carved a path of slaughter through the camp. But the plan turned on one cruel detail. In the blackness, they hit the wrong tents. Vlad reached the center of the camp, and the Sultan was not where he expected. Mehmed survived. By morning, Vlad's force slipped back into the night, having killed thousands and terrified tens of thousands, but having missed the one man who mattered. It should have been the end of Vlad's gamble. It was, instead, the setup for the most chilling moment in the whole war. Mehmed pressed on toward Vlad's capital, Târgoviște, and outside the city, the Ottoman army stopped cold. Stretching across the ground before them was a forest, not of trees, of stakes, thousands upon thousands of them, by some accounts 20,000, bearing the bodies of Ottoman prisoners and soldiers Vlad had captured, left to rot in the open as a single monstrous message. This was the weapon Vlad had been building his whole life. Mehmed II, the man who had stood inside fallen Constantinople, who feared almost nothing, looked at that field and, the sources tell us, was shaken to his core. He is said to have remarked that he could not take the country of a man capable of such things. The most powerful ruler on earth had been out-terrorized. Soon after, the great army turned around and withdrew, leaving Vlad's puppet brother Radu behind to chase the throne through politics instead. Vlad had done the impossible. He had faced down the empire that ended Rome and made it flinch, not with a bigger army, but by weaponizing fear so completely that victory itself felt too costly to claim. His own ending was smaller and sadder. Betrayed and imprisoned for years by his supposed allies, he clawed his way back to his throne one last time, and was killed in battle around 1476, his head, the legends say, sent to the Sultan as a trophy. The Terror Prince finished by the violence he had mastered. 4 centuries later, a novelist would borrow his name for a creature of the night, and the real man would vanish behind the myth. But the true story is stranger than any vampire. Vlad Dracula was proof of a dark idea, that fear, used without limit, is a kind of power all its own. He saved his country and damned his name with the very same weapon. And history has never quite decided whether he was the monster at the gate, or the only thing holding it shut. Next on the drawn past, the last morning of Constantinople. After 1100 years, an empire ends at dawn.